and it's a seed squash I'm saving. Right there, you can see how big it is from my hand. I think this is a superb quality yellow straight neck type that came out of the breeding. Okay, we're out here again and we're taking another look. We want to see the size of the squash after pollination. In other words, how fast they grow. But first thing, we'll just take a general look. Here's pot number 1. And this is pot number 3. Can you see the difference in the plants? Let's look at pot number 3 first. You can see the seed squash is here, and it's got a good size on it. It does, and that's good. And it's got a good amount of squash up there. You know? Take a look around it there. Pretty leaves. Looks nice. But then you come over here and you look at this one, okay? And this thing is, oh my gosh, I have never seen the squash produce like this. This is crazy. And a lot of times when they start growing, like down there, and here's this one I pollinated, it's got the little S on it for seed squash. It's a little smaller than the other one. It's not growing quite as fast, but look at all the energy it's putting into producing all of this squash. It's just absolutely amazing, this plant. So this is almost assuredly the one I'm going with. This is line 1, line 1, pot 1, and that is a squash I'm going to take. But I need it to be about the same length as the others I'm going to compare it to find out which one is one of the ones or the one I'm going to carry forward from this line. But this one is not quite big enough yet. I'd like it to be about 6 inches, and it is right now. It's about 5.5 inches, and I want it to be about 6 inches. The reason being is, for summer squash, 6 inches is, you know, at the probably the very tail end of what you want to really keep for summer squash. You get them bigger than that and they start not tasting quite as good. So I will pick that one in a day or two once it gets a little bigger. This is line number 1, pot number 3. This one's got a beautiful squash on it, and it is right at, see if you can tell here, put it on there, right at 6 inches from there. This is number 3, so I'll know which pot this came from. Here is line 3 and line 1, bucket 3 and bucket 1. For selection to go forward, these are the 2 I've chosen. You can see this one is fatter on the bottom and a little bit shorter. This one tends to grow a little longer, not quite as fat. Let's cut them open and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm very pleased actually. I thought for sure this one was going to have a lot of seeds in it, because these are the size that, pretty much the max size you want to get a yellow squash, about 6 to 7 inches here, and this one's closer to 7. Yeah, this one's at least 7 here. So yeah, I'm very pleased. There's not a whole lot of seeds in them at all. That's exactly what I'm looking for, meaty. This one seems to have a little bit more seed. Let me switch to the other side so you can kind of see them together. I guess they're pretty close. This one seems to have a little bit less. That's surprising. It really is. I expected this one to have a little more. Now I need to do a little taste test of each one of these, and we'll see where to go from here. Okay, you can see that this is 3, and that means that this is 1. 1 is chopped up, and my little bit of butter, and I'm going to caramelize it, brown it a little bit. And that happens when it's an indicator of sugars in the squash. So let's do that. Just a tad of, I can't believe it's not butter, added in there, maybe a teaspoon. Man, these things, I'm cooking it relatively on high, and they're pulling out the liquid like, it's very wet looking. It's very unique. I like it. I brought 3 over, pot 3, and it's quite a bit more substantial. There's more weight, more squash at the same length, or approximately the same length. So that's also a key factor. This is what I like to see. The heat was up a little bit too much, but it still looks very nice. And it is cooking very nicely. It's very bare bones, so I can get a taste of the actual squash and not so much other ingredients like onions or garlic. Just a little bit of butter. And if you've ever cooked yellow squash before, like early crooked neck or early straight neck or crooked neck squash, a lot of times they like disintegrate and there's like a lot of water in it. And that's not the case with this squash. It holds together very nicely, and it's darkening up. It's looking real good. I'll bring you back when I put it on the plate. Okay, you can see this is one here. This is for bucket 1, obviously, so you can tell the difference. There's the squash finished. I put the other one in there from pot 3. A little butter. I completely washed it out. I do not want any transferring taste from the other squash. So it's completely fresh pot. Exactly the same amount of everything. Well, just butter. So get a fair taste test on the 2 side by side. About the same temp. This is 3. Seems to be taking a little longer to brown up. Okay, here they are side by side, finished. You can see that number 1, it browned up a lot quicker, and I like that. I haven't tasted them yet, but I like that because to me, I believe that's an indicator of the sugars in there, and sugars are what caramelizes and gives a very good taste to a lot of vegetables. Number 3 over here, it didn't quite, it caramelized some, browned up a little bit, and it looks pretty good. Let's do a taste test and see how that does. I'm going to let them cool off a little bit and then I'll bring you back. I guess however you look at it, having one squash produce this amount of a vegetable on a plate, it's a pretty good thing. And also remember, I'll do this also, that it's a bigger squash. The smaller the squash, usually the better taste it's going to be, so I'm going to get some of the smaller of 1 and 3 as well. So let's give it a taste and see what we think about it. Number 1 is pretty darn good. It's bare basic squash. Not a lot of additives and seasonings. I like this squash a lot. You can definitely taste the sweetness, and even well cooked, it's not crunchy. I'm not a fan of that, I don't know what you call it, when it's barely cooked. It's super crunchy. I might as well eat it raw. But these are soft, they have a good taste, and you get a mouthful, and this one's a really good squash. Let's go over to number 3 and give it a taste as well. I'm trying to love 3 because it was a prettier squash. It looked better, and it's bigger squash, bigger around. But it didn't have the taste of 1. And that's so unique. I mean, you have the sisters, and this is F3 generation. This is F3. And there's a definite difference in taste between this one, number 3, and number 1. Let me hit number 1 right after number 3 so I can get a taste. Oh, yes. The difference is clear when you go from this to this. Oh man, number 1 is so much better. It's subtle, but it is definitely, it has a huge impact. There's a definite correlation between the browning, the caramelizing, and the taste. So number 1 so far. I'll get some more immature squash of the 2 and try those, and I may bring a 3rd or 4th pot into the mix as well, depending on how they develop. And you can see that the S is quite big because the seed squash is quite big now. And then let's go over to the beast here. Let me take you in to see the seed squash. This is her. And definitely got pollinated. Not quite as big, but it's growing well. And this squash is almost assuredly the one I'm going to go forward with. If you look close, you can see this stem is absolutely humongous. And it's got branches on it, several branches. You got one here. Sorry about that, the leaves. You got one here. You look back here, there's one here. And it's probably got 3 or 4. And I'm pulling all the baby squash off of it because I want the seed squash to grow. And I also want to pollinate one more from this plant to get a good bit of seed, to make sure I get good viable seed. But this plant is quite impressive. It's a beautiful bush squash with great taste, and it's the one I'm going to go forward with. I know that for sure now.